Need high-quality video to promote your event, business, or band? We can help.
We're Pixel Pond, a video production team based in the Pacific Northwest, providing high-quality content to clients across the U.S. and Canada.
Whether you want coverage of your live event to promote for next year, or need a camera and a camera operator for your next big project, we can accommodate projects of all sizes.
Your story is important. Visit pixelpondllc.com or send an email to info@pixelpondllc.com to get started today. We can't wait to work with you.
Coming up on Gamers Week podcast.
This actually just got confirmed about an hour before we went live.
No kidding.
On September 29th, my good friend Gruntiatis, and if you're not familiar with him by name, you might have seen him if you watched Peanut Butter's SGDQ run. He was on the couch as one of my commentators. He's also the moderator for Kangaroo Junior Baseball, and he's putting on the first ever one-night-only home run derby contest. And not only am I in it, but so is my dog. And he will be competing. It'll be the first time a dog has ever been in a tournament against humans.
Wait. So you're competing against your own dog?
Potentially, we could be facing off against each other. It is very possible.
Oh, that's going to be an awkward night when you come home.
He's like, I know you got treats, man. Don't be trying to play.
How old is Peanut Butter?
He just turned 4.
Oh, big boy.
So he's still young, but he's definitely calmed down a lot. He's still got the puppy energy when he wants it. So like, it just depends. It just depends. Are you over there being a good boy?
He is too adorable.
We need to start running again, though, buddy. We're both getting a little old, aren't we? He loves his treats. I got to be careful.
So no, we're starting well already when Zach in the chat says, I'm rubbing peanut butter on myself right now.
Oh, good Lord.
No.
You know, Pixar, it didn't happen, Zach.
Well, on that note, everybody, welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, the weirdest, right there. The best, the worst, the weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. And this is episode 131, and today is Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. My name is Ryan, aka Retro Game Brews, and I have with me some fantastic hosts here today, as you guys can see. Now, the first of all is a woman who has recently attributed her entire love for the PS5 to me, even though she didn't know it. Blue Williams. Blue, how you doing today?
I knew days ago that was going to be my introduction, because from now on until the end of time, you were never going to let me forget that.
Right. I'm going to hold it over your head, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yep. And you're taller than me, so I can't even reach it if you're holding it over my head. It's going to be a whole thing.
Love it. And as you can see, Donnie has not joined us tonight. Unfortunately, Donnie is the kind of guy who just can't pass up a sale. He heard that Lederhosen was 99% off in Germany. So he's not with us this week. Blue and I feel if he does not show up on next episode of the show wearing full Lederhosen, he will have to sing. We're kicking
him off the show.
Well, I was going to say his penance needs to be that he sings "O Tannenbaum." I think that makes sense, right?
You're so much nicer than me.
But instead, we have a fantastic guest who's joining us tonight for the show. A gentleman who should be very familiar to regulars of the Gamers Week podcast, Mr. JSR and his little friend, Peanut Butter. JSR, how you doing today?
Dude, I am doing fantastic. It's great to be here, and thank you so much for having us both. Peanut Butter's a little tired because he just had his dinner, but he is excited to be here as well, mostly because he's getting treats. But no, thanks for having us both on. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So before we get started, do you want to just give everyone kind of a quick introduction for folks who may not be familiar with your work?
Sure. My name is James. I go by JSR. I am a retro variety streamer and speedrunner. I've been streaming on Twitch for about a little over 8 years. And most of that has been speedrunning, although I've been branching out a lot more and also doing like randomizers and challenge runs. And one of my biggest challenge runs, it's a very long story, but it involved teaching my dog to play video games. And that has been kind of the story of 2024 for us both. But
yeah, we definitely covered the headline on our show when you guys streamed Gyromite at GDQ. And we got this whole thing. We had a long discussion about what games that Peanut Butter should play next and what other animals perhaps that you could train to do such a thing. So yeah, we're super familiar with you guys and what you've done.
That's so cool. It's so surreal to see how many people everyone loves dogs. I mean, that's like a universal truth, but to see a dog doing something unique is just, as a active participant in the whole thing, it's kind of hard to see it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And there's another gentleman now. He's teaching his dogs to speedrun Gyromite in our. He was inspired by what we did at AGDQ, and watching him with his dog, it's like I get it now. Like I always understood it, but watching it, it's adorable, and it's so cool.
Yep, I think you guys have started a whole new category for speedrunning.
I'm very proud of you, Peanut Butter. Did you know that? You're a good boy. I'm very proud of you.
TKN85 in the chat says, as my dog sleeps behind me and just farts all stream, I will grow more and more jealous.
and of course, people in my community do know that that's pretty much what PB does a lot of the time. But no, like he's always been a little bit of a stream mascot. I always wanted a dog, and when I got him, all my community just loved him. So he was already a big part of my streaming community. But now that I've realized his hidden talent, there's a lot of them that he amazes me every single time we work together, we train, or just in general, just how cool a dog he is. Like, it's not all me. In fact, I would say I got lucky. I don't think I'm not a professional dog trainer. I'm very much an amateur, and getting to this point with him, I feel like it's more him than me at this point, truthfully.
Absolutely. And like I said, we've been a fan of your show as well as Peanut Butter for a while, so it's so nice to have you guys on.
Thank you. And like I said, it's just really it's really cool to be able to talk about it because, like I said, you live it and you don't get to appreciate it sometimes. I really tried during the SGDQ run because AGDQ went so fast, and then we had the travel. There's a whole story attached to that if you want to hear about it, but it just went by so quick because I had my own run at AGDQ. I had to fly to Pittsburgh immediately after we finished our run. So Peanut Butter's run was at I don't remember. It must have been 10 in the morning on Wednesday.
Right.
Or on Tuesday. And I had a run Thursday afternoon in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
As part of the same AGDQ. So the moment he was done, I took him outside to go potty. My sister was going to come get him after she got off work. He was fine. He was only home alone for a couple hours. And we left. We went to the airport, flew to Pittsburgh, and the whole time we were out there, I've been streaming now for 8 years. I've done world records. I've done GDQ runs. I've done all kinds of things. And I've also done other things in other walks of life. And I've never had the attention. I've never had the amount of people just want to talk about Peanut Butter. And I'm just grateful that I'm a part of it, and I get to kind of by proxy live in Peanut Butter's fame. It's kind of cool because it's not like, people don't recognize me. Even at GDQs, they don't even recognize me. When they see PB, it's a crowd around him. It's It's incredible.
Well, we actually invited Peanut Butter to be the guest, but he said we had to bring you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he usually charges an appearance fee. I bribed him with treats. When we did the AGDQ run, we wanted to do it in person, but I wasn't confident at that time that he would be able to perform on stage. Dogs get excitable. They get distracted easily. And I was just like everyone else. There's no way he could do it. And right before his AGDQ run, when it started the story broke out, IGN came to my home to do an interview. They wanted to bring cameras and interview us and videotapes and stuff. They had a whole camera crew. And my apartment's not that big. I mean, it's not small, but it's not big. And PB had lights, boom mics, and strangers in his territory surrounding him, and he performed with all of that hullabaloo. And all I could think of when they left was, man, I really wish that we had submitted this as an in-person run, because as you guys saw at SGDQ, he killed it. We trained really hard for it, but he killed it. I'm the luckiest dog owner that I've ever known. I don't know if I'm the luckiest in the world. I don't know. Everyone says that about their dogs and their children and all that, but like it feels that way, you know?
Right.
Like I just feel really lucky.
Such an amazing story too. And you know what? We're going to ask you a lot of questions later on here, because I think we really want to dive more into this and just your experience, you know, not only just with streaming and some of the things, but things that you have planned moving forward and all that kind of good stuff. So super excited to kind of get to hear this story as we continue to go on. But
absolutely.
Yeah, man. So also wanted to say, big thank you and welcome to our newest sponsor, Pixel Pond Production Company. And we've got all of their links in the show notes, so don't forget to check them out. And yeah, thank you guys so much for becoming a sponsor of Gamers Week. And they're in the chat tonight here. So yes, woohoo to Ducks and Red Ox. All right, so before we jump further into the show, why don't we do our reviews, reactions, and requests for the week? So first up from Go Hobo Go, how can you guys talk about potential set franchises, but you never mention Double Switch before Phantasy Star or Shining Force? That one's our bet. Because I like Phantasy Star 4 in particular. And
blame Ryan and Donnie. Their fault.
Let's say Shining Force 2 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. So
you have no excuse.
I have literally no excuse. You're right.
So is Double Switch worth mentioning, though? I've never played Double Switch.
That's not one I've touched before. I got to be honest.
So really what we're saying is we're blaming Donnie because he's not here.
Right, because he mentioned Double Switch. And
he's the one who mentioned Double Switch.
As long as we can push the blame off on someone, I'm fine with that.
Hashtag blame Donnie.
All right, next up from Holy Headshot. Okay, for the record, my stepbrother and I loved Eternal Champions. I liked the writing and backstory of the characters from all different timelines. I'd be all over that movie if done right. I could see there being a good material for a series on Netflix or something. I'm not familiar that much with the backstory of Eternal Champions. I gotta be honest.
There is an anime on Netflix that basically has that plot where it's champions from all throughout humanity's history are brought together to fight on humanity's behalf against the gods. What the heck is it called? I'm looking. Speak amongst yourselves.
I mean, I can say there's worse fighting games out there. I mean, there is worse fighting games out there. I was never big on the fighting game stuff, so I didn't play a lot of Eternal Champions.
Yeah, and to me, too, that was kind of something that was a little bit foreign to me. I was really focused on like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, I think, and a lot of that had to do with my experience of playing them in the arcade. I loved those games so much because of that. Just, everybody puts up a quarter, right? And it, kind of whole entire line ends up being behind each one of the cabinets as you go in. So there was just like something about that drew you to it. And then finally you get to play it at home. Fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted. So when they started to come out with other ones for it, I think I got burned by a few of them. So I guess probably is why I didn't give Eternal Champions its due. But come to find out, it sounds like they got like a pretty robust backstory. So that was my skepticism by being a novice when it comes to Eternal Champions. But if it's good, I will definitely watch it.
I cannot find it. And this failure will haunt me forever. But it exists. I watched it. It was fine.
It was fine. Okay.
It was fine. It wasn't great. It was fine.
Yeah, fine is better than terrible.
Record of Ragnarok. Frank always has my answers. Thank you, Frank.
I mean, I got a lot of faith in it, too. I mean, a lot of these new shows based on these different video game properties. I mean, I know you've seen the new Fallout by now, right? I mean, that's amazing.
TKN85 says, Clay Fighter, 63 and a third, live action movie, or we riot.
Specifically Sculptor's Cup, I think, is what.
I will get out my best torch.
And last but not least, Ada Gamer looks at 40 says, wait a minute. Is that actually drop you've been using for months? My actually?
Actually.
I heard it, but it now just clicks. Like, hey, I think that's my smug, self-satisfied, actually.
And he is indeed right. It is Bill's actually. 'Cause it was so good when he was a guest on the show. And I think we even said in the episode, I was like, I'm going to keep this and use this. And he's like, yeah, great, do it. So every time somebody gets actually in the show, that's Bill that you hear.
I hope to find that kind of fun someday, is to log into a podcast and realize that, hey, that's my voice.
Wild Wolf of Mibu says Vin Diesel should star as bad Mr. Frosty.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
It's such a range as Groot, so I can see that.
Mm-hmm. He's got a range in all his movies, really, if we're being honest.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and shout out our patrons for the week?
We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. Retro Blast Pat, B&T Zilla Guy, The Mad Milkman, Seven Castle Forest, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snack, Strength Grande, Love Retro BTW, Steven Sand, Ramboski, Terry Canair, A-Gill 2020, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Sir Coffee of Houseblend, first of his name, Hybrid Divide, Matto 1606, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, The Pixel Pond family, including Shannon and Lou, Zach, huge thanks, number one Blue Sick Voice fan, John Baran, Sony with the Smashing Pumpkins, Evo Lust, Rai Seeker Best Friend, Mega Retroman, Gamatroid, Moradib, Michael Lakite, Emo-esque, Bill Tucker, The Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcakes Pickled Pepper, Ducks with Thick Thighs, Wizard of Zardos, Bobs and Dugnut, and Loudmouth. If you like what you heard today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing, like prizes and giveaways. You'll also gain access to our bi-weekly, patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
Nice. Sounds like Sony's in the spoopy season mood, so good for her.
From bouncing quackers to smashing pumpkins.
There it is.
It's the changing of the seasons.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at our headlines. This headline segment is sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast, and each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. And right now, they're playing through The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Theme Park. Visit them at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes. Wow, picked out 2 heavy hitters here. Ocarina of Time and Theme Park. Now, maybe Theme Park isn't like a heavy hitter for everybody, but for me, it definitely was growing up.
Here I was prepared to say that I am not familiar with Theme Park. And then after you said that, then I was like, well, I better not say anything because I think I'm an idiot.
So Bullfrog, a studio out of the UK for, like the early 90s, they came up with a bunch of games, and some of them were pretty fun, some of them not so much. But Theme Park and like Theme Hospital, 2 fantastically fun games. But like Theme Park, of course, was like the predecessor to Roller Coaster Tycoon. What made it interesting, I think, too, is that there was a lot more involved in kind of the background stuff. So like you would even do like union disputes and things like that as you were managing your park. And there was a lot of interesting kind of business parts to it. I know you love business simulators, Blue, so I'm sure this is right
like you are really selling me on this game.
But it was really ambitious for the time, and it's also got like a certain amount of charm to it as well.
It definitely walked so that Roller Coaster Tycoon could run.
There we go. I love that.
Okay. I'm probably not going to check it out based on your description, but now I know. Now I know what it is.
So Ocarina of Time, though, I would imagine you've played a little bit of that.
I've not played it all the way through because the 64 is just a challenge. It's one of those games that I can respect for what it did, and I can watch streams and say, like, yes, it's such a great game. But yeah, I just don't know if I have it in me to play it on the 64.
I think you had to be there to really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Once that time frame has passed, it's just a struggle to go back sometimes.
So TK85 says the past 2 weeks we've learned that Blue and Donnie just tune out RGB when he talks. Donnie forgetting about the Peter Molyneux segment, and Blue forgetting how much Ryan or RGB likes theme park and roller coaster tycoon.
I know he likes those weird business sims. They all run together in my head.
Those ones and City Skylines is like my jam.
Yep.
Oh, I've just recreated entire maps just based on Ocarina of Time. Actually, I made an entire Hyrule based on Ocarina of Time and City Skylines because I just love doing weird stuff like that. I think it's fun.
Nice.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and take a look at our first headline for the week. It says, as SAG-AFTRA members strike against some of the biggest video game makers in the world in an effort to secure better protections against AI, the head of Amazon Games says bringing artificial intelligence into game development is still a good idea, in part because games don't really have acting anyways. Whew. In a recent interview with IGN, Amazon Games CEO Christopher Hartman said, hopefully AI will help us to have a new gameplay ideas, which has nothing to do with taking work away from anyone, and especially from games. We don't really have acting. The majority of the team sits in programming, and that's not going to go away. That's all about innovation.
It's a bold take, Cotton.
Yeah. Oof.
I mean, that's not even a lukewarm take. That's. I mean, have you ever seen Symphony of the Night? For goodness sakes, man, come on, dude.
What is a man?
Well, even because, like, if you think about Amazon's biggest game, which is New World, I believe, where I read that it has something like 200 individual speaking parts. And then each of those parts has to be translated and localized. So a different voice actor is going to have to do each of those for each of the localizations. And so you are talking about hundreds and hundreds of actors for their game. But yeah, there's no acting.
It's such a strange thing to say. I mean, I think what it sounds like it was set off the cuff because it was, mixed in with a lot of other pieces to that. And maybe just a myopic view of what Amazon does versus all the contractors that they got to bring in order to do 200 speaking lines within a game itself. So it sounds like to me that maybe he just, I want to think that this was just like a slip, right? This was a gaffe. He didn't really mean it, but that is such an awful thing to say. I mean, imagine being somebody who has been doing voice acting for Amazon Games recently and just being like, we don't need those folks. And in the voice acting community as well. I mean, is that something where you're going to say, well, if he doesn't appreciate voice actors, are they going to have a harder time getting voice actors? And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a lot of the uncanny valley there, too. I mean, if you're talking about replacing actors and writers with AI,
right,
then you're going to get like a lot less real emotion and real effort. It's going to come off in that uncanny valley. People are going to find it unsettling and artificial. It's just not a good idea to take away the human element from something like this because, I mean, it is a video game and there's no... In most video games, it's not live acting. It's not live action. You're basically dubbing it. I personally think that's a foolish move. I understand the strike and all that, but yeah, I that's my take.
If you're an exec of a multi-billion-dollar company, you should have two jobs. I mean, number one, your job is to help the company grow and make more money, but number two, just don't say stupid shit. Like, this is your second biggest job that you have, is just don't say stupid shit that's going to get your company in trouble. And Amazon Games has had terrible PR for years based on their company culture and the reports coming out of it of what it's like to work there and to develop games there. So in a lot of ways, I know, Ryan, you're trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
I'm trying.
Based on the past, I think this guy is just clueless. No, that's fair. Wild Wolf of Mibu says CEOs get paid extra if they get fired. You're right. Yeah. Maybe that's his whole goal here all along. But all these execs, as we know, when they see the possibility of AI being brought into game development, all they see is the dollar signs. Right. All they see is the money it's going to save them. And that's it. It doesn't matter that the technology is not ready yet. And probably it's going to be at least a few more years, if not longer, before we get rid of that uncanny valley that you were talking about.
Gotta love
I don't like it. I don't.
No, I don't like it.
Sarah, I don't like it.
I'll never forget the amount of fanfare that surrounded when the cast was revealed for Grand Theft Auto Vice City. It was star-studded. They had Ray Liotta, Burt Reynolds. Just off the top of my head, I know there's way more, but it was like the first time that a major studio had ever spent money on real Hollywood A-list actors that did the voiceovers, and you could tell when you play the game, those characters on a PS2 felt fleshed out and realistic. I don't see the same results happening with AI. You just can't, even if they are better in terms of that, people still want to hear the names they're familiar with. They want those celebrities. They want those actors. And then the writers, humans are always going to be more creative than anything a machine can ever do. That's what sets humans apart from machines. That's why we're artists. You know, I just don't see AI ever doing a better job than people. And they're going to end up shooting themselves in the foot with subpar products while everyone else, like a Nintendo or even like a Sony, hopefully like hopefully, I don't know. I don't know who to trust anymore, man. I'm still reeling from Konami. It's been like a decade and I'm still mad at Konami. Anyway.
I would love to see, by the way, the job description for the CEO when they post it out there, you know, and like just the 2 requirements for it. Make money for the company. Don't say stupid.
Simple, right?
I feel like they would get a lot more applications if that were the case.
We will pay you so many millions of dollars to just do these 2 things. I guess that's really difficult because CEOs are constantly saying stupid shit.
Mm-hmm. All right, so next up, Concord, PlayStation's new 5v5 PvP first-person hero shooter that released last week has launched with under 700 concurrent players on Steam. For comparison, the $200 million losing disaster, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, launched with 13,000 concurrent players, and even Redfall launched with 6,000. When it came to Steam, one Concord developer claimed that the game had been in development for 8 years, meaning it began life straight after the first Overwatch debut, presumably to jump on the short-lived hero shooter craze. Also of note, the game comes with a $45 price tag opposed to all of its free-to-play competitors. Yikes.
Who knew Redfall could be, relatively speaking, a success story?
You know, I think for a while that was the low water mark, right? We were going, well, you know, at least this isn't as bad as Redfall. Right.
It could be Redfall.
And now we're talking about 10 times as worse in regards to that from your start.
I definitely could see it being part of the price tag being a problem, but also could this be a sign that maybe gamers are getting tired of these types of games? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, because if you are going to chase trends, which is it sounds like that's what Sony was doing with Concord, trying to chase the Overwatch trend, you need to be a lot faster doing it, because there's so many PvP shooters out there. It's like we said when this there was the launch trailer of this, I feel like maybe at the Game Awards. I don't remember when the launch trailer debuted, but even then we're like, that looks boring as hell. And then when we talked about it last week as one of the games that was releasing, all 3 of us were like, nope, it just looks so lame. And then apparently that viewpoint was very common. I would be interested to see how many people decided to pick it up on console versus Steam,
right.
if that might be affecting the numbers. But I think PlayStation saw what they've done with Helldivers 2 and said, oh, this will be great. We'll get so many players. And it has not worked out that way.
Yeah. How long before that's a free-to-play game?
Oh, right. Can you imagine how upset you would be if you paid $45 for something that was free like 2 weeks from now?
I'm sure if it ever got to that point, there would be people demanding refunds. I mean, there's no way they could do that.
Well, I mean, it's Foam Stars is going free to play. It's only been out for a month or 2.
I forgot that was out.
Right. I mean, we forgot it was a thing. And that's why it's going free to play. Because everybody's like, oh, yeah, that weird Splatoon clone thing.
I was actually interested in thinking about playing that, too. And yeah, totally.
It's free to play.
Yep. Well, now I guess I could. It doesn't matter, right?
You Fall Before Me in the chat says, we could have gotten PlayStation All-Stars 2, Days Gone, pretty much anything else but this, yet they still bet on the wrong horse.
Overwatch itself, right, had this big following, this big, player base for quite a while there, and then that has certainly teetered off. So to your point, JSR, I think everyone's kind of moving on, not just specifically from these types of, or like hero shooters, but I get the feeling that people are moving on from the battle royales. They're moving on from those games as a service kind of thing that we're seeing quite a bit of. Now, I would love to be able to predict the future and say, I know what kind of game everyone's going to want next week, but that's the problem, is when you start development for something that was popular in the moment, you're really betting on the future that this is going to be a continuous hit. And let's be honest, Overwatch itself, super fun, but they came out with Overwatch 2 that wasn't as received as well because it's not exactly the most, how would I put it, diverse gameplay, right? You've got the same characters, you've got a handful of them, right? And what you're playing on. And yes, you can spend a lot of time mastering each character so that you're, the top of your class or whatever. But that's still, it's kind of shallow. It's thin, right? Where I think some of the other games that you see, like Fortnite and things like that, they put so much time into advancing how the game plays and listening to their player base, like adding a mode that doesn't require building. That's one I would be a lot more interested in, right? Where there just hasn't been that kind of innovation with these types of games. So even if this game itself had some of those really like nice quality of life changes or just innovation, because of the genre that it's in, I think people's expectations are already low for it. And then I as I remember too, the reviews haven't been that fantastic either. So a lot of things going against this one, to say the least.
It makes me sad that the major studios aren't willing to try to get out of that comfort zone a little bit.
Right.
We don't see the same outside of like Nintendo and a few others. At least shouts out to Nintendo. They might suck sometimes, but they at least make, relatively creative content from time to time. But I would love to see, one of these studios take the first person shooter genre and try to I don't know how you would innovate it. What hasn't been done yet, right? Like, how do you, like you said, you had like Overwatch was lightning in a bottle, I think, coming off like PUBG and everything that was going on in the battle royale scene. It just kind of worked in that moment, but there's no direction that it's going. It's just people are kind of losing interest. And it's scary with everything going on in the industry too, because I don't even own a PS5. I play on Steam if I play anything modern. I don't feel compelled to go in and experience a lot of the newer game experiences like that, because it feels like I'm just playing the same experience with a little new polish and a couple new things. I haven't really played a first-person shooter that felt new in the sense of like they tried something new since like the first Destiny. Yeah. And that was not anything, terribly innovative. I loved the raids that they had, and I always thought that'd be cool to have like a PvP element in that. But like we're still doing the same thing we've been doing for a decade. Of course we're getting bored with it. I don't know what's going to come next, but I have a feeling that we're kind of seeing the end of this whole battle royale thing.
It's the same thing from a movie perspective. Lightning in a Bottle was Marvel movies. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was just huge. Every single movie they came out with was a blockbuster, making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Nowadays, it's harder to put butts in the seats for the next Marvel movie that comes out. And I don't know if it's because the content isn't the same. I just think it's the same formula that we've already seen so many times over and over again. And we're creatures of habit, yes, but from an entertainment perspective, I want something new. I want something fresh and exciting. And you're just not getting it. But to your point, this is playing it safe, right? Well, we know people will check it out. Well, maybe not. Maybe Concord is that final nail in the coffin to say, hey, this is people are getting to the point where they're not checking it out anymore.
Yeah.
It's rough. 700 players. That's rough.
Yeah. All right, so next up, in its latest bid to save itself from oblivion, GameStop has announced the opening of GameStop Retro stores. The GameStop website has been selling physical copies of retro games for almost a full decade, but now it looks like the brick-and-mortar locations are about to follow suit. Announced yesterday via the GameStop Twitter account, the post includes logos from the system starting with the NES and going through the PS3. The website, retro PS3. The website also has
skip past that part.
Website also has a new store locator tool to see if there are any GameStop Retro stores within 100 miles of your location. Ouch.
Oh boy.
GameStop is the store that famously tells its employees to throw away boxes and manuals. And now all of a sudden, though, you want to cater to that crowd, that retro collector crowd, when they come in looking for complete in box and looking for all these odds and ends to complete their copy. And you're not going to have any because you threw them all away. Who are these stores for then? Because the actual retro collecting crowd is going to know better than to go there. Mm-hmm. And then the people who are just like, oh, I fondly remember this, but I don't really play games anymore. Maybe on a whim, I'll go pick something up. They're going to walk in, see those prices and go, no way.
Yeah,
100%.
I saw something on Twitter that really put it all in perspective for me. It's something I jumped to the front of my mind when I think about this. Like, we collect. I assume you guys collect. I'm sure most of your viewers and listeners collect video games because we're gamers. We collect them. We understand, if you've been doing this long enough, that there are counterfeits and bootlegs and repros out there. And if you don't understand what you're looking for, they are so good now that if they didn't print reproduction at the bottom of the label, you could never know unless you knew what you were looking for. And I guarantee you the minimum wage 18-year-old working at GameStop gets zero training on that. And I saw a tweet from somebody. I wish I had it in front of me to actually reference it, so I'm paraphrasing, but it mentioned that they went into a GameStop and saw obviously fake Pokemon GBA cards. And they mentioned it to the people behind the counter, like, these are fake. How can you be selling these? And they said, we know they're fake. We have to sell them. We have to accept every cart that gets traded in.
Really?
And immediately all I can think of is, how are they not going to go bankrupt off this when people make $45 bootlegs of Earthbound and Little Samson and Snatcher on Sega CD? All you got to do is burn a CD with a decent looking label and you'll fool anyone. I don't know. I feel like they're way too late. They should have done this a decade ago, and they flubbed it, just like they always do. That's GameStop.
Yeah, well, like it says, they've been selling physical copies of retro games on their website, which I did buy from them one time. And it was terrible because I was looking for a copy of Super Mario RPG. And on their website, they had a picture of an absolutely pristine copy. Right? And it was cheaper than where I found anywhere else. And I was like, it's GameStop. I don't know. This could go wrong. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it. It shows up. It doesn't have a label. It's been scribbled over. I mean, it was the trashiest copy you have ever seen. And I'm like, how can you sell something that is so drastically different than what you have pictured on your site? So, like, I tried to get a refund, tried to get, like, some attention on this. It was terrible. The best I could end up doing was leaving a review and saying, don't ever buy this. Don't ever buy from them because you have no idea what they're going to send you. So, I don't know why, when their brick and mortar locations are suffering and closing more than ever, they think that this is going to be the thing that's going to get people through the doors.
And I think to your point before, they've alienated the retro collecting scene for so long, right? Because I remember back in the day when GameStop... and I'm talking like 2000s. They sold retro games at the store. They would accept those. But the one thing that you would get burned on is the trade-in value, right? So when you would go in there, you'd offer them up and they would give you like 10% of the value of it. So most people just skipped it and went to their local retro shop. And then they went to this whole like super corporate model, right? Where everything is about the players club and everything is modern. Nothing is, they won't accept anything that isn't a modern gen console game. And then they started to take it to the point where you were only buying games that had been already opened, right? That one was a strange take on that, you know, as time went on. But again, it became like going to more or less like a corporate nightmare, right? Like what you would expect it to. Everybody's got to be cookie cutter and everything like that. So I get that. They were probably owned by like private equity or whatever. So somebody made that decision without actually thinking of the ramifications.
there's no way this is going to work.
Right.
There's no way.
Right. Pedal back, and all of a sudden now we're going back to like our roots, I guess.
There's this entire genre on YouTube of people who buy games from like DK Oldies and from other retro dealers who upsell. And granted, I understand the business model. They need to make a profit, and I get that. Maybe the problem is they're just asking for too much profit, because when you're paying those prices, you expect premium results. And GameStop is right up there with all of these different retro dealers in terms of how much they sell their games for. And I'm not even talking about retro. I'm talking just in general. You get deals on eBay that are $10 cheaper for games that you get at GameStop. And like you said, you buy new games at GameStop, they come opened. The entire premise of me going to a GameStop and buying a game, it could be a fake, it could be a bootleg. I take it home and it's a bootleg, and I just spent X dollars, probably overpaid for it. Or I buy a console that is claimed to be refurbished and cleaned. And I mean, we as retro enthusiasts have to clean our NESs constantly.
Right.
We have to adjust the stupid ZIF connector. We have to make sure that their yellowing isn't going to make my Super Nintendo fall apart if I dust it off. And if I buy a game from GameStop for premium prices and I take it home and it's fake, damaged, not working, dirty, not what I expect for that price, I'm taking it back.
Of course. And
GameStop will take it back. But what's to stop somebody from abusing that?
Yeah, I was going to say, if they weren't so famous for only paying like 34 cents for trade-ins, you could really make a racket knowing that they have to accept whatever you give them. So you could just make a bunch of bootleg whatever games, sell them in, and walk out with a hefty profit. But they're cheap. Yeah, I guess that's why it's not a problem.
So your little Samson is still going to be like $8 is what they're going to give you for it.
Yes, I can give you is $250. That's all I can give. I can't see them ever dealing in any high value stuff. There's no way. No. How could you even risk it? There's got to be some sort of limit on what they'll accept as a trade, what they'll sell in their stores. There's got to be. If somebody came in with anything worth more than $100, you got to imagine they're opening it up, checking the chips, making sure it's the correct board, the label's genuine and original. That's what the minimum that you have to do. And they're not going to do that. They probably have a Game Boy at a GameStop, or an NES that works, or a TV that they can even hook that to. All that stuff. This is not going to work. GameStop's foolish for even thinking it, honestly.
And
well, it's not the dumbest thing they've done in the last several years. So
fair.
We'll just keep the popcorn out and see what happens.
I think it's going to get to the point in the next few years. There's GameStop is not going to be a thing. And
haven't we been saying that for years, though? And
yes.
Somehow they're still here.
I think they got saved by that whole short sale fiasco from a few years ago. I think
from their stock, they're
still floating on that. That could be.
I think so. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't follow that very closely. But regardless, like you said, they're not relevant anymore. I mean, heck, we're lucky we even have disk drives on our consoles anymore. I mean, how long do they have? Their days are numbered anyways. Sad to say, as much as we love physical media, we know it's not going to be around much longer. And when the PS6 or the Switch 2 or whatever comes out that doesn't have physical media on it, what are they going to sell? Funko Pops?
Well, that's why they tried their NFT marketplace.
Yes.
They were going to do that. Remember, that was going to be the thing that saved the company. And then I think they put the axe to that before they even started it.
Oh, man.
It's sad.
I will say,
sad because
okay,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, it is the only place, though, that I've been able to find Christmas ornaments for video games fairly consistently. So, yeah, maybe I'll have to go to Etsy for that. I'm okay with that, though. I'm okay.
You don't have a Hallmark?
Maybe. I don't know. But when you go to GameStop, there's a bunch of them, not just like one or two. So, and I got my tree topper that's Triforce and everything.
They used to sell Fam Gamer stuff too, didn't they?
Yep.
At one point,
definitely. Did.
Yeah, I bought my Triforce lamp from a GameStop. I don't want GameStop to go out of business. I don't. Like, as much as I'm. It sounds like I'm anti-GameStop here. I'm anti-GameStop in 2024. I think they're stupid, but I don't want them. They're the last major physical game store from the old days. I mean, we're fortunate in Las Vegas that we have a lot of very good, thriving even retro stores. And they deal in modern games too, so it's not like they're just specialists that only deal in antiques. They have PS5, Switch, all that stuff right there. I don't see GameStop being here in 2026 or 2027, but I see those game stores that I go to all the time, and they have the Christmas ornaments, all these cool, the Japanese, what do they call them? The gacha, gacha machines and all that. They got all that stuff there. It's cool as heck. And they're doing exactly what GameStop should have done back in the beginning of the PS4 Wii U time. And it's too late now. It's just too late.
I was going to say antiques like the PS3.
Right there. Right there.
Yep. Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to our top 3 new releases of the week. First up is MEO, The Smiling Man, Famicom Detective Club, out on the Switch. Student Aisuke Sasaki has been found dead in chilling fashion with a smiley-faced paper bag over his head. As a member of the Utsugi Detective Agency, you've been tasked with investigating the events that led to Aisuke Sasaki's death. Along the way, scrutinize the clues and testimonies you gather for potential connections to the gruesome events of the past. Next up is Gory Cuddly Carnage, out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Battle the bloodthirsty hordes of the adorable army in fast-paced combat where your hoverboard Frank is your weapon. Power, slide, grind, and spin to cause maximum carnage and high combo scores. Paint the town red with Frank's blades as you slice and dice with gratuitous amounts of semi-realistic gore and dismemberment. We are talking buckets of blood. And then finally, Star Wars Outlaws, out on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Experience the first ever open world Star Wars game set between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Explore distinct locations across the galaxy, both iconic and new. Risk it all as Kay Vess, a scoundrel seeking freedom and the means to start a new life along with her companion Nyx. Fight, steal, and outwit your way through the galaxy's crime syndicates as you join the galaxy's most wanted. So out of these 3, Ryan, what are you picking this week?
So MEO, that was the biggest disappointment I think we've had this year, from a trailer to what it was, right? Thought that was going to be like this really cool horror game that Nintendo was finally coming out with, like, oh my God, it's going to be like Silent Hill, but with Nintendo. And then it was a Famicom game that they redid for the Switch. So, yeah, and it's also like in that anime art style that I just love. I really do. So probably not going.
Unless it's hentai.
No comment. Star Wars Outlaws, I've heard some pretty awful reviews. Yeah, sorry. I do remember, and I'm sure she'll talk about it, as one of the people on this podcast said that it might be Game of the Year, though. So I'll leave it up to her to discuss that one. But Star Wars Outlaws looks okay. That's what I'll say. Which leaves me with Gory Cuddly Carnage. I didn't expect to like this game. I really didn't. It's like really cutesy graphics, but there's so much like gore and violence mixed in with it. I gotta at least try this. This is one of those games where I'm probably not going to be like seriously into it, but you got to give it a shot. It seems hilarious, and you're on a hoverboard as well. So, it hits the nostalgia for a little bit for Back to the Future on that one. But yeah, just give it a try. It seems like a unique style of gameplay. It's kind of perfect time for spooky season coming around the corner too. And it's got it looks like pumpkins and stuff like that kind of involved with it too. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with Gory Cuddly Carnage this week.
Okay. What about you, JSR?
So looking at these 3 games, I probably think that Star Wars has the greatest chance of being a big hit if EA is smart enough to at least improve it, as they probably have plans to do so. I mean, right. I'm sure I haven't seen it yet or played it yet, but obviously Star Wars and open world should be a match made in heaven. So you imagine they're going to probably make this a competent game, but it also could end up being the one that fails severely. And I mean, like we've seen EA and Star Wars haven't necessarily been, hitting on all cylinders lately. So hopefully they can make this one come around. I would like to think that the MEO game would be the one I'd be the most interested in. Kind of like you were saying, though, it also kind of, I'm not sure. Is it more Phoenix Wright than it is Silent Hill? That might still be fun. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet either. So that one now off the as we're talking about it is the one that interests me the most. But I think of the three, if I played all three right now, I would probably like Gory the most. It's hilarious how you think about a game of cuddly creatures being torn to shreds is going to be the best game, but like it sounds the most intriguing. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick one, but I think I would at least give all three of them a try.
There you go.
Nice.
Blue,
right.
What about you?
So MEO the Smiling Man, yeah, it's not getting great reviews either. It's just kind of, the reviews have been middling. So even if you're like a super fan of this series, it sounds like this came in with a splash and is just kind of leaving with a whimper. Gory Cuddly Carnage. Like when I started watching the trailer, I thought this is so stupid. And then the trailer kept going and that trailer really tries so hard that by the end of it, I was like, you know what? I respect it. I respect the hustle. I respect the effort. I still don't necessarily want to play it. This is probably a Twitch game for me where I would just watch somebody else stream it. But yeah, I will at least give them that in that it looks like there's a lot of passion behind it. So that brings us, of course, to the elephant in the room, Star Wars Outlaws, which, like Ryan so kindly reminded all of us, that was my prediction at the start of the year. I was looking ahead to the big releases in the year, and I said, what's going to be game of the year this year? And in my defense, in January, looking ahead at the year, there was nothing. This was like basically the only big AAA game that was going to come out that I thought even had a chance, because Ubisoft is just taking their Assassin's Creed formula, slapping some Star Wars paint on the top and saying, here you go. I mean, it really shouldn't have been that difficult, but as you said, the reviews are kind of like, it's fine. It's like they tried not to completely copy their Assassin's Creed formula, so they took some stuff away apparently and then didn't replace it with enough else to where it's kind of being described as repetitive and empty and not a lot of just meaningful stuff like you would expect in the first ever open world Star Wars game from an IP that has almost unlimited source material. You could have done anything. So if you're finding repetitive stuff and meaningless content, that's probably not going to cut it. So
I do need to correct myself, by the way. I meant Ubisoft, but I mean Ubisoft EA, what's the difference?
At this point,
a lot of time, yeah, there's not much difference. So this week, I will say that I'm going to pick Star Wars Outlaws because I need to save face and I need it to do well and I need people to like it.
I appreciate your dedication.
Really, I'm not going to play anything.
So before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. The show explores the history of video games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. And this week, Bill finally finishes his Final Fantasy VI series. By the way, I'm not emoting that as it's written in caps.
Yep, that's his caps lock right there. Also, sorry, real fast, Agent Nil in the chat says, I got 15 hours in Star Wars Outlaws and really enjoying it myself. See, there you go.
There we go. Perfect.
Game of the year.
By releasing an odds and ends episode, this contained 2 hours worth of random thoughts and opinions that didn't make the main series. So this week's question is, what is the weirdest video game in your personal collection? Let Bill know your answer by sending him a tweet at A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter. So Blue, what is your weirdest game? Rainbow Bright.
This is a homebrew game that I purchased from Pixel Heart, which is out of France, I believe. It's a horrible game. It's really, really bad. But you know what? The box is beautiful. It's got an instruction booklet and everything inside that is absolutely gorgeous. I adored this cartoon when I was a kid. So, you know, probably objectively, I've got some weirder games on the Switch and stuff that are, you know, just digital games. But I wanted something that I could show. So this is what I decided to bring.
Nice. JSR, what would you say is your weirdest game?
I've been looking around my collection because, like, I have been kind of parting out some of my collection over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a collection that numbered in like the 4,000.
Wow.
In terms of like games and stuff like that. It was ridiculous. And the reason I mention all that is I used to have a game that is very obscure and weird that I sold for $1,200 a couple years ago for the PlayStation 4. And you might have heard this story before. I don't own it anymore. I did sell it. But back on April 1st of 2020, on Twitter, there was this random Twitter account that got created called Limited Rare Games. And they announced that they had a rare game coming out and they were taking pre-orders. And I said, the heck with it. It's PayPal. If it's a scam, I'll just charge it back.
Right.
So I threw a pre-sale out. There were only 82 copies of Poop Slinger for the PlayStation 4 that were ever sold. And I poop you not. I sold that game for $1,200, and it's worth more than triple that today.
Wow.
Whoa. So 3,600
in
plus
that range,
today.
if it's new. They sell for about 3,000 on eBay now.
Wow.
Damn, that's crazy.
I always just love that, like, one of the most rare games in this collection that I had at one point insured. You know, I had like imports and rare console, 64 disc drive, Panasonic Q, blah, blah, blah. I had all this crazy stuff. And the most valuable game in my collection was Poop Slinger.
Bedwa Blackburn in the chat says, EA, Ubi, potato, potato.
There we go.
What about you, Ryan? What's your weirdest game?
So I'm going to go with Baby Boomer. Which,
I love that game.
Yes, it is a weird game, but it's one of those Color Dreams games that came out right with the baby blue cartridge, and it's essentially you are a baby, right, crawling through several different platforms, and your weapon of choice is your baby bottle, and it is the graphics are, how would I put it? It's very Action 52.
It's an auto scroller, right?
Yes, it is an auto scroller as well. And it's funny. I actually I picked up this game a little while ago, and then I was just looking to kind of trade in some games, so I wasn't terribly enthused about this game, and brought it in. The guy didn't want to give me what I thought I at least even in trade-in value, but he pulled up the game and he started watching the gameplay and he goes, "Oh my God, I need to have this." Right. Still couldn't come to a price or anything, but it was funny because he's like, "Well, because I'm a boomer." And, but yeah, so it's, the game itself is just, it's funny. It's weird. It's quirky. I love it. I'm sure there are weirder games in my collection. Probably some ones I can't
think of one or two.
Yeah, I can't talk about too either. But
you can show those on the screen.
But yeah, I think Baby Boomer is definitely up there in the weirdest factor. That's for sure. So, Blue, I know we were planning on spending some time here talking to JSR, asking him some questions from the patrons. So do you want to go ahead and kind of kick things off here for us today?
Our other guest has made himself comfortable. He may not be joining us for the interview. He is currently, he's awake now. He sees him talking to him. Hi, PB. Yeah, he's like, nah.
All right, so first up, what diet does Peanut Butter follow to keep in tip-top, record-breaking, and adorable shape?
So Peanut Butter does have a very sensitive tummy. When I used to feed him just basic kibble, it would give him a lot of gas and just, he's a bit of a diva. He has to have that, high quality, grain-free $35 bag of a special chow that I have to buy from PetSmart, but sometimes I'll feed him the fresh, like, I don't know if it's meat. It's like meat with like whatever they put in it, but he loves it. He loves it. I pull that out of the fridge and he just goes, he spins and does the pod dance and the whole thing, and it's just adorable. But usually we stick to the kibble when we train or play so that we can kind of work his meal into it, and it becomes just routine for him at that point.
So we talked about this a little bit before the show, but what games are Peanut Butter working on now?
Well, fun fact, this actually just got confirmed about an hour before we went live.
No kidding.
on September 29th, completely just by coincidence, because that happens to be the day of my partnerversary, which is really exciting. I do a big special on Twitch, but that also happens to be the day that my good friend Gruntiatis, and if you're not familiar with him by name, you might have seen him if you watched Peanut Butter's SGDQ run. He was on the couch as one of my commentators. He's also the moderator for Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, and he's putting on the first ever one-night-only home run derby contest. And not only am I in it, but so is my dog. And he will be competing. It'll be the first time a dog has ever been in a tournament against humans.
Wait. So you're competing against your own dog?
Potentially, we could be facing off against each other. It is very possible.
Ooh, that's going to be an awkward night when you come home.
I mean, and to be fair, he's probably not going to win, but it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be a good show. And I think that's all that people really want to see. They just want to see the dog press the button. But we're also working on a couple different things. We've been working on our next big run, and a couple games that we have in mind are Castlevania on Famicom Disk System Easy Mode.
Wow.
Silent Hill 2 Dog Percent. And the game, and both of those are viable.
Which makes sense too, because
Yeah, I like that. I like the Silent Hill 2 idea.
They're not going to be easy, I'll tell you that. But those are something we're working on probably next year. Right now, we're working on Pokemon Snap on the N64. Well, technically on the Nintendo Switch, because that's how its controller interface is. And we're routing it out now, and it's all on me at this point. He performs. He does what he has to do. He's ready. So right now I'm routing it out. I have to come up with a very specific route that is similar if you're familiar with blindfolded speedruns. If you've ever seen blindfolded speedruns, those are all meticulously stepped out to the point of redundancy so that when a runner loses themselves in a room and can't look to see where they're at, they have a way to recover, or they have a way to figure out where they're at. It's similar with the dog because he's not looking at the screen. He's not reacting to the screen. He's reacting to me. I'm the one that has to tell him what to do.
Right.
So right now we're kind of figuring out, okay, what's the best way for me to get him to take the picture of this Pokemon to get these points so that we can move on to the next stage. We're getting there. It's not gonna be a world record. It's not even gonna be a top time. He might be dead last on the leaderboard, but he is going to do a Pokemon Snap speedrun.
Love it.
And we're hoping to have that done by the end of the year, but these things take time and we're getting more and more complicated. I'm kind of figuring out as we go, so we'll see how it goes.
All right. And then does Peanut Butter like what the show Bluey has done for the culture of dogs in the entertainment media? Also, isn't Bandit the best dad ever?
Yes, he is. He is a good dad, and I do love that show. I don't know if he does. I feel like he thinks that it's more, there needs to be more video game playing, a lot more treats and belly rubs, and if anything, I'm very happy to see what the different reactions of the community. I mentioned this to you guys in the pre-show, but there's another streamer that goes by the name Ginja, Ginnja, I believe his name is, and he's training his dog to play Gyromite now. And he's very close. He's very close to putting up a run. So I'm really excited to see it. And we mentioned a little bit earlier, this whole thing with Peanut Butter playing games has been a roller coaster, especially since he's my dog. I have to train him. I have to take care of him. I have to, balance the games with the food, with the play, I got my own thing to do. Don't bother me right now, dog. I'll come play with you in like 20 minutes.
Right.
Because he loves the attention. He loves it. He always wants my attention. But, to see another dog doing what PB does, and there's not that same attachment, there's not that same perspective. Mm-hmm. So, you're seeing the other side of it, and it's freaking adorable. I cannot understand how I never was just looking at my dog playing these games and been like, oh my God, this is the cutest thing I've ever seen. But like, it never hit me until after seeing this other dog playing games. I'm just so proud of him. I'm so proud of him. He's such a good boy.
Jay the Wook in chat says, Castlevania is going to be hard, stairs and platforming.
Well, the reason we're doing that version, the Famicom version, is they have, we didn't get this on the NES. I guess Konami didn't think we needed to have, Konami, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I had a brain fart. That they didn't think we needed an easy mode on our Castlevania, and easy mode doesn't have the knockback that you have in Castlevania, that famous knockback. It's not there. You get hit, you just stop. And the other thing is you have a lot more hit points and your weapons do more damage. So we're going to start there and then maybe eventually work into the NES version, but it's going to be very similar to like a blindfolded run in how we route it out.
TKN85 in the chat says, Peanut Butter is going to keep getting distracted by the floor chicken.
We'll definitely have to route in some treats, huh? He's out. He went back to sleep. He's already out.
So if you named your dog Peanut Butter, why did you use cheese to train him?
So, all right. So the reason I named him Peanut Butter, it was an intentional thing. I've been speedrunning for a lot longer than I've had Peanut Butter. When I got him, I didn't know what to name him. And I thought how it would be cute if I named him Peanut Butter so I could call him PB as a speedrunner.
Personal best.
That way every day I can have, the best PB ever. And he wasn't ever, I never intended for this to happen. This kind of just happened. The whole thing just materialized one day when I was speedrunning Gyromite for the AVGN trials a couple years ago. And I was like, dude, he could totally do this. So my buddy Maya and we made a controller and we tried it and it worked. And I just said, the heck with it. Let's do it. And Here we are. I mean, he very much lives up to his name. And I'm just, it worked out beautifully. It was all planned. Does
he have a favorite brand of peanut butter?
I usually just get Jif or any type, but I also use the peanut butter that comes in a Kong, the little dispenser, kind of like Easy Cheese does.
Yep.
The reason we didn't use peanut butter at SGDQ was because we were around all those people and there was a lot of talk about allergies. So we just wanted to be safe. String cheese was not messy. He loves it. It's easy to keep for a long time. So it worked out beautifully. His home run did come on string cheese. His big moment came on string cheese. And then, of course, as we were all celebrating, the first thing he did was walk right over to my buddy Crispy's plate that he had set up for all the treats and just started scarfing down all the string cheese.
Did he not earn it?
He earned it. But yeah, we're just excited to see what the future holds, and we're also kind of working on some other stuff too, just fun stuff. Like he's trying to tie the world record for knocking out Glass Joe. He's 1 frame behind.
42 seconds.
He missed it by 1 frame. It's pretty tough, but we're working on it. And then also he's playing Wild Gunman, trying to get a speed run to qualify, but he has to hit 1 million points, and right now his PB is 140,000. So he's got a ways to go. But the real fault isn't on him. It's me trying to anticipate. Usually when we fail, it's because I foul. I have him let go of the button too early. So we're working on it, though. We're getting there.
Irate Mexican says, peanut butter cheese fart percentage when?
Oh, come on, man. That's been like that since day one, man. This dog, like I said, he has a sensitive tummy, so I have to be careful with what I feed him. So it's very much a process. When he's going to play, like I can't spontaneously get him to play for more than a couple minutes. He has to be in the right mood. He has to be hungry. Like my mood, he reacts very much to how I am in my mood. My body language, my voice. If I'm anxious or stressed or angry, he will not perform. I have to. It's a whole process we go through every time he plays.
That sounds like it might be a nice grounding experience, I guess, where you to work successfully with peanut butter, you have to be in the moment and just kind of shed anything else that it would be weighing you down that day.
I was a very different gamer when I first got on Twitch. Very competitive. I've always been competitive, but very quick to get salty, very quick to get ragey. And I still have those tendencies from time to time. I'm not going to pretend like I don't, but over the years, as a streamer, as a speedrunner, you learn what works and what makes you look and feel like a fool. And like you kind of over time realize nobody wants to watch an angry 30-something, 40-something-year-old man playing a 30, 40-year-old game. Like it gets old after a while. Like we understand there's emotion and stuff. It's like you eventually have to kind of realize what you're doing, and it's not the end of the world. It's you in the game. That's what the game is designed to do. The game is made to beat me. That's what it's programmed to do. My job is to beat it. It's not to get angry and throw a controller. I bring that up because over the years, I've definitely found that I've grown a lot as a person, and getting PB and having patience, training. One of my biggest inspirations for training is a YouTuber who goes by the name of Zach George. And Zach is a positive reinforcement trainer. Before I got PB, I'd been, my dad, when I grew up, he was old school. Dog pees on the carpet, you rub his nose in it. That's just what we did. That's what we thought was the right way to do it. I didn't know better. When I was getting PB, because I got him during the pandemic and I had to wait. He's a purebred, so I had to wait for the litter to be born and all that. And as I was waiting, I did the research and I started learning because I wanted to do it right. I wanted to have a dog that loved me, not because he feared me, but because he loved me. And it was an eye-opening experience to raise a dog that way, because it is hard. It's a lot harder than you ever believe if you've never done it, to just smile and clean up the dog poop when you don't catch him pooping on the carpet, because you can't punish him. He's not going to know what it's for.
Right.
You can't yell at him because he doesn't understand, and that's like you said, it's a very life-altering process, kind of similar to what I imagine. I don't have any, but I imagine having children. It would be very similar to that. So any parent out there, probably to a much more greater extent, I'm sure, can relate to that.
It's kind of like that old thing of where people say, the first thought was, I saved this dog, but really they saved me. I feel like that every dog owner I speak with has that kind of feeling when it comes to their dog. But in particular, it sounds like with Peanut Butter, just because of the mutual connection. I mean, if you think about it too, gaming is a large part of your life, and to be able to share that with your dog is such a cool and unique experience. So that's fantastic, man. I just, what a cool way to have that connection. I mean, to your point too, about being a parent, a lot of times you want to teach your kids how to play games because you want to share that moment with them. Being able to do that with Peanut Butter is just, it's unheard of. And it's, to me, probably one of the coolest things. So very cool.
I appreciate that. I am very proud of him. And what I love the most about it, somebody, like, you get all kinds of questions in your chat when PB's playing, and, people who don't know better and they're new to the channel, they'll say things they don't know what they're talking about, but things like, oh, he doesn't even look like he's enjoying it, or he doesn't look like he wants to be. That is so further from the truth. I can't even tell you. I could go grab his controller right now. He'll be right here ready to go, because he loves it. He loves the fact that we're working together. He loves training with me. That's what we've worked towards from day one. When we train together, it's not, oh, it's time to get serious. It's play. We're playing. We're having fun. He's getting treats, and we're bonding. And so when I pull that controller out, to him, it's not, oh, it's time to work. He gets excited. It's playtime. He's getting treats and belly rubs and attention. And that's, I think, what the difference is when you train a dog, or, just in general, just being positive and not being, the dynamic of power isn't what it used to be, or what we used to think it was. It's all about just mutual relationship and understanding with your dog, and just enjoying the process. Like, people, I swear, they don't think about the enjoyment of being with your dogs when you take them to the park, when you play with them. Like, a lot of people seem like it's a chore, and that's not the way I look at it. It is something I look forward to, genuinely.
Yeah, why do you even have a dog if you're not going to enjoy it?
Right?
He just did that a little stretch in the background where he took his paws like over his nose, and I was like,
oh, Peanut Butter. Hell, he knows we're talking about him now. PB, do you want a treat? Oh, hello, buddy. Oh,
there he is.
Can you say hello to all the people watching on the podcast? Can you say hello?
oh, what a goodest boy.
Yeah, he's a good boy. I'm very proud of him. He's such a good dog. I'm very fortunate.
Well, and he's also a reflection of the work you've put into it.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you.
So I think, just for a time frame standpoint, I think we can probably call it here today, but. Oh.
Now Peanut Butter's sitting up in his lap, so we can all look at his such a handsome face. What a handsome boy.
Can you tell me who's a good boy? Speak. Can you speak? Who's a good boy? He's trying.
I don't think we could end on anything better than that.
All right.
No, it was great being here. Thanks so much for having me, and I really hope that folks will come and see me in Peanut Butter.
Yeah.
PB is often on stream. We do all sorts of stuff, retro, variety, speedrunning, randomizers. I'm training for a randomizer tournament right now. And of course, PB is doing stuff as well. So I hope you don't mind shouting out my Twitch if anyone's interested.
Yeah,
you guys
absolutely.
can follow me at twitch.tv/JSR_. And we'd love to see you there.
And we will have all of JSR's links in the show notes as well. So if you're listening to the audio version of this, definitely check them out. It's a good time. And how often do you stream? What's your usual schedule?
I don't keep an actual schedule, mostly just because of life and work and all that. But sure. I usually stream about 3 to 5 times a week, usually in the early afternoon. I try to keep it most of the time, like around the 3 to 5 o'clock time is usually when I'm live. So when you're getting off work, come stop by. You're likely to see me on.
Yep, and that's Pacific time as well. So 3 to 5. So depending on what time zone you're in, definitely check them out. Well, everybody, thank you for listening to episode 131 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Love Retro BTW, Gamer Looks at 4D for sponsoring this episode, and don't forget to check Pixel Pond. That's right. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. Yes, if we want to add that, that'd be great.
That's what I get for just copying and pasting.
That's what you get. Yeah. But at least I was the one who said it and not you, so I get to look like a jerk in front of everybody. Awesome. Cool.
His fault, not mine.
So if you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at Gamers Week PC. Follow us right here on Twitch at twitch.tv/Gamers Week Podcast. And we record live every Wednesday at 8:30 Central Standard Time. And email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com. Visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com. Or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. And last but not least, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Gamers Week. And since you finally made it all the way to the end of the episode, please leave us a rating and review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. And again, JSR, thank you so much for joining us. And if you can let Peanut Butter know, too, that we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. Though this 49ers blanket has been staring us in the face this entire time. So I really don't know if we can be friends after that. But, I'll do my best. I'll do my best to ignore it.
Blue's a big Packers fan.
I was this close to wearing my Packers hat. My cap tonight.
I almost wore a Bills Mafia hoodie. So.
You do that like half the weeks anyway, so it wouldn't even have mattered.
Right.
I still can't talk about football anymore after what happened in February.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
It was rough.
F's in the chat.
Yeah. Well, maybe one of these years we'll actually win a Super Bowl when we get there instead of choking it every. No, I'm sorry. Anyways, that's a different podcast. We'll talk about that.
And you're speaking to a Bills fan who did it 4 years in a row. So
I'm going to say, at least you guys are making it out of the playoffs.
No, it was
I don't
great.
know what team does that.
Thank you so much, you guys.
All right, so we should be rating here in just a few moments. So again, thank you everyone for stopping by. We really appreciate you showing up for an episode of Gamers Week Podcast. JSR had a blast.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you so much. So much. We really appreciate you filling in. And thank you to everybody who stuck around and watched the show. It was so fun having you in chat. And we hope to see you again. But for now, everybody have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VD-STDs things, right? Make it fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
that was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.